And connect. Hi, everyone. I'm Tara Short, founder and director of Green Adventures Tours. And I just got back from the Yellowstone Winterwolves and Wildlife Safari Adventure. And I just wanted to take the time to share with you a little bit about my experience and to help you, I don't know, get an idea of what this extraordinary adventure was like. Now, as we know, technology has given us the ability to share with others experiences that we used to do presentations in person, but now no matter where we are, we can connect on things that we care about. And today with me is Terra Argo, and Terra is the one who actually inspired me to do this. I don't know, like 2 months ago, a month ago, I saw that Terra had on her Facebook page. Was connecting people within her network as a way to educate each other. And I said, I would love to talk about Green Adventures. And we had such a good conversation about Green Adventures, about the outdoors. And I asked Terra, I was like, Terra, would you mind doing like kind of an interview with me after all my trips? And that way, because I think you asked such great questions, and then that way we could educate people who might be interested in going on these trips, or even just educate them about the animals and the wild places we visit. So this is Terra Argo, everyone.
Hello, thank you so much for having me and for asking me. I'm just really honored. So Tara's exactly right. I decided I have a love and passion for connecting and networking and education. So my thought was, when I started my Live with Tara series, was to do just that. Help people learn to build diverse and robust networks through genuine and authentic relationships. And that's really important to me. And I own Argo Operations, where I do strategy and enhanced operations for businesses, but I also work with them through networking and collaborating as well. And so I have a great love for the outdoors, as Tara knows. And so I'm dying to go on one of these trips. So when she asked me, I'm like, absolutely, I can't wait for you to share all this information with your viewers.
Awesome. Yeah, well, so what we plan on doing is Tara has some questions, and we'll just kind of talk about the experience, and I have some photos to share. But I just want to let you know that I'm not in Yellowstone right now. I'm in Chicago, and I live in a very busy area. So you might actually hear trucks and snowplows actually outside, which is just, it's like convenient timing, right? You know, when you're about to do a presentation.
But yeah, you guys have had a lot of snow lately.
Yes, and I love it. I mean, that was one of the great things about going to Yellowstone was just to have that winter wonderland. Yes. And when I came home, it's like we got a dumping of snow, and it was like I had a nice acclimation to coming back home.
That is so fun. Well, I'm in Oklahoma, and it is sunshiny and very pretty here today. And we don't get as much snow. So I've talked to several people today up in the Northeast, and they're like, we're buried, and we just don't get to enjoy that quite as much. So I really enjoyed seeing your pictures from Yellowstone. So we'll get started. Yellowstone is another place that I absolutely love. So kind of tell us what that trip looked like. You guys left, or they arrived, your guests arrived on what day? And then like, how many day trip was this?
Sure. It's a 6-day trip with 4 days in the field. So technically the trip started on January 25th and ended on January 30th. But there were 7 plus me. So there were 7 clients, and everybody arrived like 2 days early into Bozeman. So I had no idea what a cool little town Bozeman is.
Isn't it?
It reminds me a little bit of Alaska. It's kind of got like this, it's like cultural. It's got it's kind of hip. It's got really great restaurants. There's museums that I never even got a chance to go see, like Museum of the Rockies. So a few people came into the museums. Some went snowmobiling, and then on Monday was actually the start of the trip, which was kind of like just a meet and greet. We had a nice dinner at the restaurant on site, and then on Tuesday was the day we got an early start to go into the park, because there was actually a concern with this. You guys got a big snowstorm in the Midwest around that time, and our guides were concerned that perhaps the snowstorm, which I was like, ooh, snowstorm. They're like, snowstorm means bad visibility, which means that we might not be able to see these animals. And but nobody really like knew. I mean, you're when it comes to wildlife, right? You're just like, you do what what nature provides and what
that's right. You never know.
And I didn't know really what to expect, but so yeah. And then we spent 4 days, 3 nights at Mammoth Hot Springs, and the last night back in Bozeman. And then people left on Saturday morning on the 30th.
Okay. So most everyone probably flew into Bozeman, right?
Everybody flew into Bozeman.
Okay.
Yes. And
isn't that the cutest airport?
It is. It's like I got off the plane and it was like such beautiful like mountains, and I just felt immediately like in love with Bozeman. I really did. I'm not saying that to be cheesy, but I was like, wow, it reminded me of a small version of Salt Lake City. If you've been to Salt Lake City's airport,
I have not been to Salt Lake.
It's got those huge windows with the view of the mountains, and like that's what I loved. And then this is the same thing, but just on a micro scale.
That is so awesome. Yeah, I flew up to Bozeman and then stayed in Big Sky. So did you guys stay outside of West Yellowstone?
No.
Or did you? Okay.
So we stayed in Bozeman, and then we stayed in Mammoth Hot Springs. So I think Mammoth Hot Springs is inside the park.
Awesome. Did everyone love to be inside the park?
Yeah. I mean, I guess one of the things too that I did, so I never knew much about Yellowstone. I had avoided it really like the plague, honestly. I just thought it was just overcrowded, and how many more bison does one need to see, you know?
Although you were posting pictures, and I loved it.
And it was like, so yeah, staying in the park was really great because it feels very historic, you know. So it's our nation's first national park. And I don't know when the Mammoth Hot Springs Hotel was actually built, but I mean, it's like early 1900s, but it's right next to the Mammoth Hot Springs. That's how it gets its name. And the Mammoth Hot Springs are all these terraces. And so like, it's just another geothermal feature that it's got a beautiful like boardwalk trail to explore. And then of course it's just easy access because you save from Gardner, Montana, which is in West Yellowstone. So that takes 20 minutes to go up the canyon to get into like the park. We saved 20 minutes by doing that. So then you just get right on the park highway, and you're basically doing the same road over and over again. You're just because you're only in the northern portion of the park. It's the only roads that are plowed.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. I had remembered them telling me that during the winter you can only come in one side, right?
Right.
Because of how deep
actually,
the snow
I think there's
gets.
2 sides, but they're both northern. Because that's a good question. I don't know, Cook City, because maybe you can only come in one side, because Cook City is the other part of it. I don't know, my geography isn't good enough to tell you, but it's limited for sure.
Yeah, I knew it was. And so how amazing was it to have those geothermal, beautiful geysers like going? I mean, did they go off while you guys were there? Could you just walk out and see all the steam? Because I bet that's beautiful in the winter.
Yeah, well, okay, so not only is the geothermal stuff cool, but we had we had Old Faithful to ourselves. Okay. Have you ever
so incredible
when you go to Old Faithful, it's like thousands of people all right there waiting for the geyser to go off. And I think it's a combination of COVID, and the weather, because the only way that or the time of year, the only way that you can go see Old Faithful this time of year is to take a snow coach. So it looks like a big yellow bus with giant tires, and they go off into the roads that aren't plowed, only accessible by snowmobiles, hikers, and cross-country skiers. And so you get out to Old Faithful, and our guide, who the driver for the snow coach, goes, "You have to get a picture of this," and I'll show you guys this later. But you have to get a picture of this, and he's like, "Look at all the benches with like thick snow, like untouched, and nobody around." He's like, "You're not going to see a photo like this. You're not like you're just going to be really hard to get that, just because there's always so many people." So yeah, the geothermal aspect was really quite amazing. Yellowstone was actually preserved for the geothermal. It was never with the wildlife in mind. They put a big box around it because they wanted the hot springs and geysers for tourists that they brought out in the late 1800s, early 1900s by railroad. So it's amazing to think that it was never really about the wildlife to begin with. It was just about those cool features. It is basically on top of a giant super volcano.
Yes, I know. I was always so amazed when I visited, because I thought this is just incredible to know that we're like literally standing on top of a super volcano. And, it's really amazing to think of. So when you were going in, like what types of animals were you seeing? So I know you went for wolves, but
we're looking. So the main thing was to look for wolves. But of course we saw bison, elk, mule deer, pronghorn, which are not like they're often called pronghorn pronghorn antelope, but they're not antelope. They're more related to the giraffe. So they're in their own family, believe it or not. So, but we did see the pronghorn. Did I say bighorn sheep? We saw a bighorn sheep.
Uh-huh.
And coyotes, bald eagles, golden eagles, lots of birds, which I don't have the list right in front of me of our different bird species. So yeah, you go there looking for wolves, but there's still so much to see. The only things I saw a pine marten too, which is one of the most photographed weasels most sought after photographed weasels in Yellowstone. My pictures were they're not as good. I brought like a 600 millimeter lens. I mean, the thing was like the size of my arm. I was like carrying around a Canon, and I still couldn't master photography in Yellowstone.
Oh, I can just imagine. That's why people, my dream was like one day I thought if I could just paint like pictures outside Yellowstone, or like take my camera. A lot of people like live outside of Yellowstone just because they love to go in and take pictures.
I would love that too, just to be able to drive in and have the access to just sit in one spot and take pictures when you want to take pictures. Yeah. Because we were limited to 4 days. And I mean, we saw a lot in 4 days, but imagine what you could do if you could just take your time through the park.
Yeah, like I said, the first time I went, I thought, you know what, I should maybe apply to be a park ranger. That would be my dream, and then I could live really close and I could take all the pictures. So whenever you had the chance to look at all these animals, was there any like really cool experiences that happened? I know that you got to see the famous 08 or 06, and you're going to tell that story.
Yes. So okay, there were lots of really cool things. I have to say, though, that what stood out to me the most of this whole experience was to hear wild wolves howl. I don't know what it is, but I got emotional. Like the very first time I heard a wolf howl, it stopped me in my tracks. I sobbed like a child. I did. Yes. I was just so humbled to be able to hear that. And I think part of the reason why is because I read a book before I started the trip. It's called What Animals Think and Feel by Carl Safina. And in the book, it's in 3 sections. First section is on elephants. Second section is on the wolves of Yellowstone. And the third one's on killer whales. And honestly, like I wasn't planned, right? I didn't know that I was be reading about the wolves of Yellowstone. And so I got into this section about the wolves of Yellowstone and some of these dynasties, Wolf 21, Wolf 08, Wolf 755. I learned about them. It's very much like Game of Thrones. And there's like all these little like gangs, right? And our kingdoms that want this territory. And just like Game of Thrones, if you love any of the characters, be prepared to have them die. And then you're heartbroken, because that's very much what like the wolf like legacies are. I mean, they only live 3 to 4 years on average, a wild wolf, and if you're lucky, 10 or 12 years. But so, and there's a lot going on. I didn't realize how important wolves were to the ecology. I mean, I'm a natural resource management major. Like I talk about ecology, but it wasn't, how about this? It wasn't even the fact that how important they are to ecology. It's just the why not protect something so beautiful, and why aren't they important enough for us to protect their right to just be on this planet, right? Yeah. And so knowing that at one point there were like 300,000 wolves in North America, and now there's less than 500, and that I've never heard a wild wolf howl, and I just read about these legacies. I just, it really touched my heart. So, and I didn't even write about it. I wish that very first time I'd heard a wolf howl, I wrote about it, but I definitely, like, I felt it. So, like another thing too, in terms of the wolves, is that we were really lucky. We were lucky to see wolves. Sometimes you do a trip like this and you don't see them, or you just see them at the very last minute. I mean, it's wildlife. So the wolves are like 600 yards away, so 6 football fields away in some cases. But we got to see the Wapiti Lake Pack, which is a pack that's normally from Hayden Valley. Now, I think this is one of the most cool things, is that, and this is what I told my clients too, is like, we observed the Wapiti Lake Pack. We got to know about the white alpha, who is actually the daughter of 755. Now, 755 was the mate of 06. So if you remember the story of 06, the Queen of Lamar, Lamar Canyon. She's the one who founded her own pack. She like killed an elk and a calf by herself in one day. She took down grizzlies and cougars by herself. Like she like had three male, like she had like two male like mates as her like sidekicks, 755 and 754. So she was one of the wolves who was killed right when wolf hunting became an option. And when she was killed, it broke up her whole pack. And 755 was kind of a loner at that point, and he roamed around for years without having a partner. Well, he found another wolf who was kind of like a grayish white wolf, and they formed a pack together. I think it was called the Mollies, and their daughter is the white alpha, who we were watching right here. Okay, so this white alpha is going to be 11 years old this spring. Okay, she's just like, I don't know, she's founded her own pack. She had like 2 canine divorces, and she's got like, she's moved her pack out of Hayden Valley to go into the Junction Butte territory. This is dangerous for wolves because wolves are territorial. They'll kill each other.
They're very territorial.
So what I was telling my clients is I think the very special part of this is that we went through this park hearing stories of 06, 08, 755, all these legendary wolves.
Yes.
And we had the chance now we were living this. We got to observe one of the legends who in maybe next year or 5 or 10 years, they're going to say, do you remember the white alpha from Hayden Valley and the Wapiti pack? So, I mean, yeah, I do. So I love that it's not somebody else's story. It's mine. And it's everybody who got to witness them. And we got to not just hear one wolf howl, we got to hear a rally. Like it was like one wolf, and then they all were like howling, and the howls were like bouncing off of the canyons at Black Creek. And everyone was just like, I can't believe this. So, and that's,
I can like feel it, like what you're saying. And I'm like, I totally feel like I was there.
Yeah. And so we do have a video of it on the Instagram page, and I'm going to try to show, I'll try to show it here, and hopefully people can hear it. If not, they can go to Instagram. But do you want to go through some pictures?
Absolutely. And one thing that I wanted to say about wolves, they're just, I don't even know what the word is. They're like majestic, you get to, especially to see the legends that come out of these, and they are protected within Yellowstone. It's when they get outside of Yellowstone, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. You're right. And I mean, if you want to even carry on, like talk about that, it's just, that's what one of the sad things is that, they're only protected in this little island of, can you see pictures? Are they popping up?
I can. They are.
Okay, good.
Click on it and maybe it'll come up.
Okay, good. So now is it wide? Is it spread up? Spread out?
Not yet.
Oh, I know what I need to do. I just need to move.
I was fascinated. I didn't have the privilege of seeing any wolves when I went. And that's why my dream is to go back for a few weeks. Again, one day I'm going to have me a home up there. But the thing that I always loved about them is that the stories were just incredible.
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing that these people, and I think it's interesting that you say too, like, which one is it? Is it 06 that had the 2 males?
Yes. Yeah.
Isn't that incredible? And didn't she raise?
Yeah.
So many.
Go ahead.
Oh no, didn't she raise a few different packs or like little ones with each mate?
She did. Yep. She mated with both of them. And what's interesting too is about these 2 brothers were inexperienced. They were like young males with no experience, and she took them out, and she had all sorts of suitors according to the legends, right? And so she had all sorts of suitors, and she took on these 2 guys, like teenagers almost, with no hunting experience. And what's amazing about 755 and 754 is that, and in any pack, actually, each wolf within the pack has a role, and they're a who, not a it. Okay, so these individuals are really important. And so the 755 was this tender and like, I wouldn't say empathetic, but he was just a more easygoing wolf, and he took care of the pups. He wasn't a hunter. He was like the babysitter. He took care of the pups. And 754 and 06 were like the hunters. And when at first it was 754 who was killed, and one of the brothers was killed, and then that caused the pack to lose a hunter, right? But you were talking about Yellowstone, the wolves leaving Yellowstone. So Yellowstone is a summer a summer place for like the prey, right? It's a summer feeding ground. But in the winter, because there's so much snow, they go down to lower elevations. They go to Paradise Valley. You know, there's grass there, less snow. Well, the wolves have to follow, and once they leave the protection of the park, they then can now be shot legally with no season and no permit.
Yeah.
And so
and think about it. The wolves don't know that there's like, oh, by the way, I'm now leaving Yellowstone. They have no idea.
You're right.
That, you know what I mean? That's the boundary that they shouldn't cross, right?
Yeah. So they have no idea. And so the 755 was killed on somebody's property, was legally hunted. And then 06 went back to the same area and she was killed also. I don't know if it was by the same hunter or not. I think there's a book called American Wolf. And that is one that kind of tells more of her story. But
that's incredible.
Yeah. So this view here is now. So can you see a bigger picture?
Yeah. Okay. I can see it.
All right. So this is kind of what a day in the life looks like. At least it starts off this way. And you notice this is Nikki. She's very bundled up and she's looking through a scope. And out here, I'm trying to think, right out here where my cursor's moving. Can you see my cursor moving?
Yes.
That's where the wolves are. So they're at a distance. This is 600 yards away. And so we took some pictures through the scopes, and here you can see, this is the white alpha right here.
Oh, she's beautiful.
Yeah, so it's the white alpha. There's the legend, the white alpha.
The legend herself.
Yep, and her brood. And you know, they're all different.
Gorgeous?
They are, and they're all different colors, even though they're the gray wolf. But they think the black came from a domestic wolf hybrid in Canada. That's where these guys actually came from. And black wolves will sometimes age out, like as they get older, their fur gets whiter.
Oh.
Okay, so here is kind of a view of imagine being the bison with the wolves like right next to you. So here, you see this little black dot. These are wolves down here.
Oh, I see them.
Yeah, and then these are the bisons. That whole pack of wolves, 18 of them, were all hanging out here with a herd of bison.
Did they ever bother them?
No, they sometimes would run over and like I don't know if they were playing or if they were like sizing up their prey, but they were. The next day we actually saw these bison like in like like the cowboys would circle up the wagons. That's kind of what the bison had done. They got real tight, and those same Wapiti Lake pack members were running by the bison. But we thought, oh my gosh, they're going to take them down. But we never saw that happen.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, look.
Yeah. So then you asked about other wildlife. Of course, we got to see coyotes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're one of the most beautiful dogs, or beautiful canines. I mean, there's nothing more I can say other than like I just love their curiosity. I love their tenacity. I love their cunning. So I'm a coyote supporter for sure. And then, of course,
we have those in Oklahoma. They're not quite that big.
What's that?
I said we have coyotes in Oklahoma with big fluffy tails, but they're not quite that big.
these coyotes must be well fed.
Yes.
And so then part of this was a we were doing photography, like not a workshop, but just suggestions. And so we were trying to get like our best wildlife shot using rules of thirds and landscape. And so, I mean, everywhere you went, there was just a really great photo. So you have the bison, and we have the discussion, like, why aren't these buffalo? Why are they, bison? We talk about how bison is the species. Buffalo are found in Asia and Africa. And then you can kind of see here by my hand, this footprint of a wolf on the road.
Wow.
So even though we never saw wolves on the road, like they were like, we just missed them. Sometimes because along the way, there are people who are like on that road, there are people pulled off and they have radios and they're discussing like, oh, did you see? Oh, so here's another kind of view with the scope set up. We're on the road looking off in the distance for wolves. Now, so our guides had radios that could hear what other guides were talking, if there was maybe a sighting someplace. And then I have to say another nerd out moment that I just didn't do. I mean, I refrained myself. So in the book that I read by Carl Safina, he's interviewing Doug Smith and Rick McIntyre. Rick McIntyre is the guy who has watched wolves, depends on who you ask, for 10 years or 17 years without a day missed. Okay. This guy is a park ranger who is the reason why we know all about these wolves. And he was there.
I like literally got chills. How stinking exciting. You should have got his autograph.
So many places. Every time we pull up, we're like, there's Rick. And I so badly wanted to go over to him and say, thank you for all that you're doing for wolf conservation. Thank you for putting a story to these individuals. Thank you for like just bringing about an awareness. But I didn't, because I thought it'd be weird.
No, I bet he gets that more times than you probably think.
I'm sure he does. But again, it was just really fantastic. All these things merging together, the story of the wolves, the people who are researching it, it didn't feel like a foreign place. I felt like I'd come home to something that I've been studying, and it felt so, there was so much. So what's great about this is we have tons of scopes. We have our guides are fantastic. They provided binoculars, high-end optics for us to view these wolves. We had the ability to record using digiscope adapters. So we got some of the video. And yeah, so I mean, I never felt like we were too far away. I have this picture because I want to point out just how cold it was.
It does get cold up there.
What the temperature was. I never looked. I was like, man, I really should have looked at the temperature. There were some mornings I think it was like -11, and some days it was like 30 degrees. But this is my layering system. So I have under this jacket I have like a merino wool 150 t-shirt, then a merino wool 150 long sleeve shirt, then a 250 merino wool, a puffy vest, an Arc'teryx winter jacket, synthetic insulating jacket, this parka, and I was wearing 3 hats.
Wow. But I bet, you know what? You were probably having so much fun, it didn't even really matter.
Right. And well, how about this? Everyone was so prepared that they could focus on the wolves. And that's one of the things I really pride myself is that I have a very detailed packing list. I want people to show up with the right gear, because if you're freezing, you wouldn't have been standing outside. Our guides were like, I can't, we see people all the time who just get in and out of the car, but we were outside the whole time. So in addition to seeing wolves, we did some fun little extra activities. Like we went snowshoeing, and this is actually just a short little video. Oops, maybe it'll play. But our guide said that like 2% of the visitors of Yellowstone, those are the only people that ever leave the road. 2%, 4 million people come to Yellowstone every year. 2% go 1/4 of a mile off the road. And
why in the world would you visit? I feel like,
I know, because I think people are just so they think just driving is the way to go, right? I mean, but you have to get off the road. So yeah, I mean, it was just, we hiked along this creek. We talked about animal sign. We saw like a coyote, where a coyote had dug out. Yeah, we saw moose tracks. We talked about just some of the different plants. It was a nice, easy stroll, and just gave us a chance to experience, quiet winter. And this is a Bison Jam. So this is where the bison get in the road, and they're using the road basically, to get from one place to the next, and we're just behind them at their mercy. But I love the little kitty clack of their little feet.
Oh yes, I've always liked bison.
Yeah,
hey, do you see many moose there in the winter?
We saw moose, but I do have a couple pictures, but they're far off. They're just like little moose silhouettes. And then sometimes we saw moose. It was just, I couldn't get a picture of it. There was one, we were driving by. I think a couple of clients got a couple of good moose photos. I mean, I heard that it was rare to see a moose this time of year in this part, but I would have to say of 4 days, we saw moose 50%. That's pretty good.
That's really good, because I, for some reason, was thinking they wouldn't be there in the winter time, at least in that area. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. And then this is me at the Mammoth Hot Springs Terraces. And it's just a big view, view of the valley below here. And I actually have a better photo of, it was actually, the sun was setting as we were doing this hike, which actually made it, I think, even more magical. Again, hardly any people on the boardwalk. And so these terraces were formed when you have this geothermal water, superheated, being pushed up through limestone. So this was all like an ancient coral reef at one point. So this limestone gets superheated and the minerals pour out, and you get travertine. And that's why you get these terraces. And then when they stop producing, then you get like buttes. And there's like some places like Soda Creek Butte you might have seen along the Lamar Valley. That was once an active like a hot spring, and then it stopped being active because the geothermal hotspot moved.
Wow.
One of the pictures that we all of us really wanted to get, and this is kind of a zoomed out version of it, is a frosty bison. And like, so these guys, this river is, warm river or creek going through here, and it just snowed. So these bison have like snow on them, but they're, warm area. And I mean, again, I had a nice big lens, and I didn't get one of those really cool photos of the frosty bison. I have no idea how. And here are the snow coaches that we took in. So snow coaches were actually brought, they were, I'm not sure if I said this already, but snow coaches were set up like to do the same route as the stagecoaches were. So when the railroad came in, they did tours of Yellowstone for folks by stagecoach. So the snow coach does the stagecoach route at 25 miles per hour, just like the stagecoach does, of all the geothermal features, but in roads that you can only access by snow coach, skiing, or hiking.
Wow. I wondered, because when I saw these pictures, I thought that's not at all. I don't even know what I was expecting from a snow coach, but that's not what I was expecting. It looks kind of fun.
It was. And actually, I mean, it was really beautiful. I put the GoPro right on the front of the vehicle, and I've got a time lapse going through that I'll eventually post. So that was really neat. So this is, being at Old Faithful, again, not having anybody here. Look at, that's just no one around. We broke fresh snow at Old Faithful. It looked like the end of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I visited, there were thousands of people, and we were all standing there waiting for Old Faithful to go off.
Yes, which apparently the park has got its calculated now down to within 20 minutes. They're pretty accurate on when Old Faithful is going to go. And we wanted to get there at the 10 a.m. quote unquote showing.
Yes.
And we were there, and I think it went off at 10:15. So that's cool. And so we went on a hike around the boardwalk of the geothermal features at Old Faithful. And just here's kind of that, like, just the strata, if you will, of like, there's a photo of like, you have the steamy geothermal here and then the snow close by. And to point out that the colors of these springs are not due to minerals, it's due to bacteria. And like, you've got like these, if you zoomed in onto like the carpet of this bacteria, it'd actually be like a rainforest. You have a canopy, you have a mid layer, you have a ground layer, and this little microbiome is like supporting life in itself. And there's actually scientists who are studying this life that live in extreme environments to see if maybe life is living on moons outside of Jupiter, like Io, which is a volcanic moon, or like in Alaska, they're studying ice worms in the glaciers, like to see maybe if these worms can live in places like Europa, which is it's frozen on the outside, but they think might be a liquid ocean on the inside. So we're using life here to study life here to see if there's life in other places. And I think that's another reason why we need to protect wild places and intact ecosystems now more than ever, because we're losing things we know nothing about.
Absolutely. I could not agree more.
And then this is the last photo, which is one of the, we got up really early and we went into the park before it got light. And I wanted to have my clients see Yellowstone wake up. And so I just love this. There was this moment between, dawn and when like full light. And it just reminded me, it just made me think of like the Ice Age or something. And, or like, someplace in the Arctic. And I just felt kind of out of this world, and I wanted to capture it.
I love how much thought that you put in to customizing these experiences for your clients. I think it's absolutely incredible. And I obviously can't wait to go on my trips with you.
I can't wait for you to come on an adventure too.
But another thing that I love too, that you made note of earlier, is really preparing people for those trips. I think that's another really big key. Like, I know when I started camping in the cold weather, I had no idea. And thankfully I was surrounded by a lot of women that were like, you need all of these things and this is how you do it. And so you providing that is just another increase in value to what these people are receiving when they get to go on an amazing adventure that they'll likely never forget.
Yeah, thank you. And that's one of the things I do pride myself on. And also working with the guides, letting them know what we need. Because women's travel groups, I mean, we're not just like any group. Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
you just can't say, oh, it's just a bunch of adults in a group and they're all women. I mean, women have certain things that I find that women tend to want answers to. They have a lot of questions and they want to be well prepared for all those, for everything. I personally don't like surprises. I mean, unless it's a good surprise, right? And then also that we teach everything at the beginner level so that people feel like they don't have to be an athlete or have experience to have the opportunity to do the trip, and that there'll be a plan B if they overestimate their capabilities. And then also too, I mean, that you are traveling solo, but you're not alone. And I tell people I'm your first adventure buddy. So even if you don't know anybody here, you'll know me, and then you'll get to know the others within the group too. So, and by day 3, which we call the magic day, it's like everybody knows each other. So it doesn't seem like we've had anybody not be friends before, or before this.
Yeah. I can just imagine that when your clients walked away from this trip, they were like, when can I go back to Yellowstone and get to experience it again?
Some people are already planning on maybe joining me in the fall.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, the pictures don't do Yellowstone justice. I haven't been there in the winter, but it is absolutely gorgeous. And I love the idea of getting to see Yellowstone wake up. You know, what an incredible opportunity, because again, like you said, like we need to protect these areas because they're going to go away if not. And so people aren't going to get to experience the beautifulness that resides right here in the US.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you said it perfectly.
Hey, it has been incredible. I just am so thankful that you shared. And so when you guys are kind of wrapping up your trip, you've done, you've been everywhere. I know in the evenings, do you guys do things in the evenings too?
Well, this trip, it's exhausting. I tell people you need a vacation from my vacations. It's really, you're in the field all day. Your day starts early. You're in the field all day. And then by the time you have dinner, you get back around 8 o'clock. Some people hung out maybe at the bar, at the restaurant or something, but most people go back to their rooms. But we had 2 nights of 5 nights where we had like a class. So first night we did like a photo basics class. And then I think it was the second night we actually met with a wolf biologist who did a presentation on her research and talked about the wolves of Yellowstone from like a research perspective. So that was one night's dinner presentation. And then the other nights, people, by the time dinner was over, people just needed to go to bed.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, you're doing things and you're out and about all day long, getting to just experience life. So it's probably pretty exhausting.
Yeah. But it's good exhausting. That feeling of just like going to bed, like having, I don't know, it's not like tired from stress or tired or not being tired at all. Cause that's another thing too, we're, especially now with COVID, we're kind of cooped up, but that tired of like body tired and satisfied.
Oh, I love whenever I've done like a full day where I'm just so tired, I'm falling into bed and I actually feel like I sleep really well.
Yeah.
So most of your guests too, like was there any aha moments, like anything that they just really learned that they just couldn't really believe that or think would have happened in this trip to Yellowstone?
My gosh, I'm just gonna assume based off of what I had seen, but I don't think they expected the wildlife to cooperate as much. So that's nice. I mean, the fear is always that you think that people are going to be like, have these huge expectations, like wolves are going to be right in their face, or like you could take a picture close up with your phone. And then when they're pleasantly surprised that they even got to see the wolves as many days as they did through the scope, or that the weather was so good, or that the food was delicious, or that there was so much information shared. I think people are just, I always love that people are usually, what do we say? We undersell, but over provide. I like that. I want people to go in with thinking the bare minimum, but you walk away going, gosh, that was really good. And always assessing how can we make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also incredible in watching you talk about the animal kingdom and how much it relates to the human. Like even when the wolves and how they are doing their mating and then how they break up and they have their own issues and their own relationships. Isn't that just so incredible?
It really is. And I think that is, so that the book I was reading is really opened my mind up to animals, like emotional intelligence, because we, for a long time in science, as long as I can remember, and even working at a zoo or an aquarium, we were always told that animals aren't allowed to have emotions. We're not allowed to say an animal is happy or sad. And wolves, it's not just wolves, but just from what I've been learning and observing personally, is that we see animals are more than just animals. They're if they have the same stress hormones that we have, why can't they have the same like dopamine reactions we have with love, which inspire us to love something, right?
Absolutely.
That aspect of it has been really has been really important to me, and the book has kind of opened my eyes to that, and then to be able to now to actually to look at the wolves and see their interactions. I see those waggy tails as like they're having fun, not just because they're wagging their tails.
Absolutely. Now tell me what the name of that book is, because I'm going to need to read that, and your viewers may want to be interested in it.
Yeah, it's called Beyond Words: What Animals Think and Feel. And the author is Carl Safina.
Perfect.
Yes. And it starts off talking about elephants in their in Amboseli National Park in Kenya. And and then leads into Yellowstone. And each one has, he's not just talking about the same thing over and over again. But at the same time, I guess the overall umbrella is, I feel like if we want to, like, if we don't give animals feelings, it's easier for us to just be like, they don't matter. That's right. But if they have feelings and they're more like us than we think, then we need to involve them into our circle of ethics. And how do we do that? That could be that's pretty complex thing to do. And like I asked one of my guides on this trip, as we were in West Yellowstone, we were driving through West Yellowstone, he was talking about how there's public lands, Forest Service lands there, and how there is this conflict between landowners outside the public lands who want to use public lands for grazing their cattle, and they don't want the bison there because the bison carry, I can't remember the bacterial thing, but it causes them to not, for cows to not be able to have calves. And it starts with a B, bursosis, maybe, I think it is. So anyway, so they keep the bison from migrating out. And so here we have these public lands that we're allowed to use for cattle grazing for somebody else's benefit. So also we can eat meat. And I asked my guide, I said, if you knew that if you became a vegetarian, all of this would be protected, would you do it? He's like, I've been a vegetarian for 25 years. And I was like, oh, that wasn't what I was expecting. But it's true. Like, it's not like there's like, I feel like what does it mean to be human, right? And I'm a meat eater, so I'm on my own path. We're all each on our own journeys, but I feel like if we want to be the evolved animal, then our evolution is not going to be about controlling. It's going to be about enlightenment, right? And being accepting to each other, open to other animals, and having empathy to them just living their lives and in ecosystems that are intact, and making choices that benefit the greater good, and evolving the way we live with that in mind.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think today's discussion was a really great way to highlight what an incredible trip that you guys had to Yellowstone. And I'm just grateful that we were able to share it with all of your viewers. And I hope that it answered a lot of questions for them. And I know you have upcoming trips, so tell them like where they can find you and like how they can keep up with all the amazing things you guys are going to be doing.
Awesome. Well, if you're interested in the Yellowstone Winter Wolves and Wildlife Safari for 2022, I have an interest group, and somewhere I will put that into here. You can also email Terra at greenedventures.com. But we have an interest group, but we have a group in Costa Rica right now. This is the very first international trip I've done since March 2020. So that's exciting. And assuming there are no hiccups, we have a trip going to Baja in the first week of March. And then we're supposed to go to Uganda in April and Tanzania in May. But then this summer, we have some domestic stuff coming up. I've got 2 Alaska trips. One of them involves a Denali camping trip. So we go to the Kenai Fjords in South Central Alaska. We do a cabin-based trip. And then we spend 4 days up by Denali camping in a campground just outside the park. It's a multi-sport adventure, and I think it's a great way to see the United States. So that's in July 5 to 11. And then I have some Iceland trips, and then an Idaho rafting trip in August. So lots to do.
I love that.
There's still a lot going on. And we got a really generous COVID cancellation policy in terms of like if something should happen. So you just go to greenadventures.com and you can click on your destination, or you could choose if you want to look at women's trips or co-ed trips. Yeah.
I think it's great too that you're offering that those international trips, as well as the ones that are local for those that may be interested in just traveling right here in the States, or maybe just seeing something a little new. So thank you so much for sharing. And I'm so excited to hear about your next trip.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. So maybe the next time we'll do this will be after the Baja trip.
Yes. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you so much, Terra. It was really great to connect with you. And thanks for asking such great questions as always. I look forward to next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.